Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Curious Refuge podcast. I'm Fred Grinstein. It's been a big year for generative AI and its impact on creative industries, from independent creators self-distributing experimental projects to new studios emerging to set workflows and vision for the near future. Today, we're exploring a fascinating new stage of maturity, you might say. It's mainstream distribution, where larger companies like TCL are stepping in to explore how this technology can redefine storytelling at scale. As one of the leading players in media hardware, TCL's foray into generative AI content is noteworthy, showcasing their vision not just for devices, but for the future of entertainment itself. We'll explore the shift through the lens of The Best Day of My Life, a short film directed by Yaeger as part of TCL Studios' inaugural slate of generative AI projects. This film used AI to reenact and reimagine an unscripted story in a truly pioneering way. Today, we're joined by filmmaker Yaeger to talk about the creative process, and by Regina, TCL's Chief Content Officer, to discuss how this project fits into TCL's larger strategy to build opportunities in the generative AI space.
AI is being used for scripting, for shooting and producing movies.
AI is being used for everything.
Hollywood production is being transformed by artificial intelligence.
Really excited to see you guys and hear you guys. Again, we're doing audio and video on these things. So hopefully we'll show some of the film. But to that point, for people that are listening, I'm going to try to describe this, and Kurt, please correct me and fill in the blanks. Best Day of My Life is something that maybe people that watch the Discovery Channel, History Channel, maybe think they've seen before. It's a great old-fashioned survival tale. This is first-person narrative, someone telling you that thankfully they survived because they appear on camera as a real human, which, correct me if I'm wrong, that part of the film is regular live action, so to speak. Dr. Warren Brown, who survived this incredibly harrowing tale, climbing with his friend the Chilean Alps, and we'll hear all about it, but virtually everything goes wrong and he somehow lives to tell the tale. So look, this is by some accounts, blue chip genre, this sort of survival space that each story is not blue chip. It's incredible that the humans make it through. But what's amazing is how we were able to tell it. And it's visually stunning. I'm envious of the people that were in the theater up in Hollywood to watch this on a big giant screen. I unfortunately watched it on my YouTube screen. But I'm really excited to hear about your journey making this, how you made this, how you guys both came together on this. So welcome to the show. And Kurt, so do you know Warren, or how did this story come to you? How did this all come about?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a twisting way in which this came about, because I wanted to work on this project, and actually Dr. Warren Brown is my friend Neil Hoover. So what we did is a docu-fiction. So we wanted to make sure that you could see it feel it in real time and everything while watching it, but at the same time tell a story that was believable in a manner that is something like you mentioned, which is blue chip. If the rule for me, the rule change is AI. That's the rule change. We'll keep the other rules correct. Right?
Okay. So I'm just making sure I'm in full rug pull mode. So this isn't a true story.
Well, it is a true story to some degree. It's basically an amalgamation of different stories that are true that we've combined with a little bit of fiction thrown in to basically piece together the cohesiveness of the short. But, as Kirk could probably speak to, accidents in which someone loses a leg, there are endless amounts of stories. He's got his own personal story. He's got lots of friends that have stories, including people that have lost leg in mountaineering accidents. And so we've kind of pulled from the universe of these kind of endeavors to and these kind of adventure quests that had these tragic moments to create the story.
So it is fiction inspired by presumably other people's true events, and that's an actor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is, but he also has lost a leg in his personal life as well. So he's got his own story.
Yes, it's a real actor. Yes, a real amputee.
Oh, so he is a real amputee.
He is a real amputee.
Okay, so what I think is hilarious is for all the stress that everybody puts into the synthetic media of AI, this is just fake real life. But brought to dramatic effect, and it sounds like a really filmmaking achievement. So in some ways, we're still tapping into the journey of an unscripted story, but then we're really using. So walk me through the kind of the experience. So you came up with the script, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I wrote the rest of the story and how we developed it, and then had to go back through and do a lot of rewrites and adjustments as we went through it, and then started filming things, filmed Neil speaking as Dr. Warren Brown and started piecing together. Before that, we had a shot list together, and so it was almost like we were doing pre-production, production, and post-production at the same time in different variations. And so like kind of put that together and like with Chris and I and Daniel, like we were like working on like the project and seeing where it's coming from. Like, okay, let's remove this element, let's add this element in, let's change this around, and also what works in a shorter period of time. I wanted to keep going. Chris was like, it's gotta be shorter. And I'm like, I know.
So what's your background? Like what brings you to, so it sounds like you're in more of a traditional kind of mindset in terms of how you make films or tell stories.
Yeah, I mean, Chris and I, we worked on a television show called Another Life on Netflix, and that's how we met originally. And then I saw that they were doing the film machine, the generator for filmmakers, and I was like, there's so many stories that aren't being told related to disabilities, and this is a statistic that's brutal, but 20% of the population has a disability, and yet uh, less than 0.5% of any people on television or film have a disability themselves. So the representation and the stories are almost unequivocally not told. And AI seemed like the perfect place to be able to be welcomed in where you're not welcomed in traditional filmmaking.
And forgive me if you mentioned this. I'm sorry. Do you relate to it personally too, or it's an issue that
Oh yeah.
is meaningful?
Oh yeah, yeah. I tore mine off in a motorcycle accident as well. Yeah, and I'm on the SAG after Performers with Disabilities Committee and WGA and blah blah blah. So have been for 18 years, and I see these beautiful, amazing people and stories and everything being untold. And I was having a conversation with Chris, probably like coffee with you, and I was like, Chris, we gotta do something with the disability space. He's like, sign up, send me what you got, and then we started working together, and that's how it developed.
And sorry, when you guys sat down, Chris, were you already in the position of pursuing generative AI content, or are you guys talking just
Oh
ideas?
yeah, for sure. I don't know at that point in time had Film Machine been announced at that moment, or I don't might not have. Just much like you and I met for God, like Kurt and I would have a regular meetups at Priscilla, which is like my remote office that I go to and take a lot of meetings at, and so we were catching up on a variety of different development projects over the last probably couple of years, and when this opportunity came up, he's like, I want to do this. I'm like, great. And he came to us quite honestly with three different stories originally. He had scripted stories, something in sci-fi, but we already had Paul who had brought us a sci-fi tale, and I was like, look, the sci-fi is great too, but you've got something really unique here, in the doc space that no one's doing. And I thought this is a real interesting way to break open AI and start to showcase the versatility of AI in storytelling. We see so many documentaries in which reenactments are quite honestly the weakest aspect of the documentaries, right? They are shot very ineffectively. They can't afford the production. Like something like this, which would be a massive undertaking of a mountain and an explosion and an avalanche and then like all this kind of things. And you'd be like, yeah, we're going to go up into the Hollywood Hills and spray some snow and have somebody like, you just think about the low end aspect of it. When someone's making a documentary and needs to cut away to B-roll. And it's like, I think we up leveled an area that it's often quite honestly mediocre or weak in a lot of docs.
So, I mean, and I almost want to rewind for a second. So, and I want to come back to the way the film got made, but just because you brought it up, can we talk about where did this fit for TCL? So this was part of an initiative that you're leading. Can you introduce that? I think some of our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the sort of guiding, ideas behind TCL's Film Machine was that we wanted to bridge this gap between Hollywood and AI, and take the fear out of AI and bring professionals in, writers, actors, directors, producers, to come in and work with us, see how we are making things, see also the volume of people that we have employed here that are working across these shorts, which is over 50 people that were working on all these shorts. Get a better understanding of what the future potential could be into their workflow going forward when they pitch ideas, when they're thinking about making films, making shows, realizing that there are production efficiencies, there's a dare to dream aspect that I think this opens up, where you go like, well, I mean, and no one's going to greenlight this project for $50 million for something that I have. But wait a minute, if I did these sequences with AI, even if it's in part, it doesn't have to be in whole. I think we're very agnostic in the sense of production and looking at what is the best solution to make something. And AI has really been a gateway for us to get into production and into originals at TCL, in which we might not have had that ability, where you're going to go sink in a cost of, hey, we're going to go make the average $5 million an episode show in 10 episodes. That's $50 million. It's a very high risk proposition for a newly launched platform that's been around for a year and is, fast and AVOD ad supported. So how do you go from 0 to 100 that fast with that level of commitment, financial commitment? This is a way for us to start experimenting, figure out who our audiences are, start connecting and building the Hollywood community, and building our expertise in this field of making originals and making AI content.
And I know that as of today, the rest of the slate's been shared. Where can people see these now? And I think what you're alluding to, this is a bigger distribution plan, right?
Yeah. So they are all available on YouTube right now. And so you can go to TCLtv Plus site on YouTube. And then we also put them up on our website. And then on tomorrow, the 12th, they all drop on TCLtv Plus. So on our streaming app, they'll be available.
And streaming app on your your connected TV, like you have.
Yeah. So if you have a TCL TV or you have a Roku device, you can, our app's available in the Roku store. And if you have an iPhone, our app's downloadable, and we're on iOS, and you can pull it right onto your phone, and you can watch it. Ad supported, free to consumers, no subscription, no signups. You're in.
I mean, I want to come back to this because this feels like really the bigger picture for our listeners. But I also, I'm still a little bit rug pulled and feeling it. But I'm almost like more amazed at how this almost is a deeper narrative of your own disability as you as an amputee. The way that it sounds like a real chance for self expression for you and your community. But I guess I'm curious, as a filmmaker, to take on, this sort of subject area that, again, there's these true stories that sort of, like Chris is saying, like, you're going to probably risk somebody's life to really go get those recreations or it's very expensive. I mean, we've seen Into the Void. There are some pretty exceptional, full on documentaries in this space that do take us to the limits, and that's wonderful. But, there's either a lot of money or a lot of risk involved. Not everybody has access to either of those things. What was it like for you to sort of go through this journey of generative AI, and just kind of walk me through how it got introduced to you? What was the process of the film?
Um, yeah, I mean, to answer the first part for as like the disability related, like people might not want to spend it and it might be risky, but then you have the disability exclusion on top of all of that, and that's a scary proposition. If you haven't done it before, then a lot of production companies and studios don't want to do it. They're looking, that's why they do so many remakes. It's not because that remake was so amazing, it's because they know that people will tune into it because it's an IP that, you can already market and things like that. But when it came to this story, like AI was really interesting because, we started off with like image creation and like trying to start with like, okay, here's a shot list of what I think is going to happen. And here's everything it's going to be. Here's the script. Here's what I'm looking for. Give me variations on it. And then, moving towards animation as we had images come in. We didn't necessarily have all of the images come in at once. And we were always updating new images for AI and the animation element of it. And as that came in, I'll tell you, like some of it, I'm like, oh no, I need like put it on a 50 and back it up another 10 feet. Like, I was like trying to like explain where I needed it in the world. And then other times, like AI would give me something, and I was like, wow, I didn't even think of getting that shot, and that was perfect. Like, put that off to the side. That's a really interesting choice. Um,
Which tools were you working with?
oh, we're on everything. We're on Runway. We were on, um,
Cling, we're on Runway, Cling, mid journey,
um, what was that? Oh, let's see.
UI. We're using Nuke in the back. We're using some VFX tools. But the question always becomes, what aren't we using? Because it's ultimately, I mean, Sora was on, friends and family only, so we were not using Sora on these. But anything that basically solves the problem, and sometimes you test things out in multiple apps and see what the better app is for a particular challenge that you have, and that becomes you go with.
And I think you made an interesting point before, Chris, that I think a lot of the discussion surrounding this technology is often knee jerks around the impact of the workforce. I think you threw out a number that ultimately there was a pretty big number of people that worked on these short films. Can you talk a little bit about that process and how, as a director, what were you inheriting, or what process followed you to make this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were figuring out as we were doing it because it is novel. Um, like what I was saying, we started with the imagery and then did AI and then moved around. So we were doing post pre at the same time we were doing production, coming up with new ideas. That was really nice because you weren't trying to go out and do reshoots. You were literally able to reshoot in real time. And when things weren't working out, you're like, okay, I have to make another decision because it's not just AI, but the story isn't working in this spot. So let me try something different and play around that. But, I was working with, 12, 13 people, at different stages. So image creation, I'll call it doctoring, but like, effects or changing colors or adapting comp art, and then, from all original sounds, just, sound design, sound editor and the regular editor, and then, the animation team and going back and forth. And then that workflow, like having that umbrella, like making sure that was all in order was its own task. Um, but how it broke away from traditional shooting as well is I don't know about the other projects, Chris, but for us, we were at maybe like 6 to 1 shooting. Like it was not like I wanted more. I was like, I need more to be able to choose, but we were just, going pretty how fast we do this, 6 weeks?
I mean, of actual production, yeah, it's probably. I mean, we were 12 weeks probably from start to finish, but that a lot of that was story and the conversation and design. I mean, you're just very early, sort of pre-development before we're like, okay, here's the script, we're off and
A
running.
total, like, so bookend from starting conversation to we are wrapped. No one touch it. Like that's an incredibly fast timeline. Um, and let's just say the mountain range. Hey, I need a mountain range. I didn't leave it up to that. Like just like, hey, you guys figure it out. I was very hands on. And so I wanted to figure out what prompts people were using to generate certain images so I could start learning not only how the machine is thinking about it, but how, like, let's say the image creation individual is prompting it. Then I would ask them for the prompts and then run that through Chat GPT and ask it how it thought of that prompt. And I was getting another unit, to think about the other unit instead of just me interjecting it. So I was like asking, so instead of me trying to drive at answers, I was trying to figure out how it functions so I could learn how to tell it what to do better. So essentially, I was learning its language the whole time.
I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, there's so many people even coming out of our community that, and they don't have the environment that TCL created for this. It's a bedroom filmmaker community. We sometimes talk about ourselves.
Just like when the VFX 100 came out, or, you know what I mean? Like everyone was like, now I can shoot for the first time. It's the same, we're at that same fulcrum point.
Well, sure, and I think for those people, like you say, it's there's an access point. We like to talk about democratization with all this, but I think in some ways you've inherited almost like a system that I think a lot of new people to generative AI, like it's almost like they're entering a workflow that maybe it sounds like you got your hands dirty too, but you also had a team of people that were specialized, perhaps with different aspects, maybe the wide shots, and they were really good at atmospherics, maybe pretty good. What was that like for you? What's like life after this process? As someone who's used to movie sets and cameras and the usual legacy system, how does this change your creative process as you're making something? And what was that like having a team almost really at your ability to request anything, right?
I think that's why it's any good. If it was just me, I don't think it would have been terribly good because not only do you have the expertise of somebody who's working, let's say in mid journey specifically, a lot deeper than I ever have. Okay, well, I don't have to spend that time learning, but I also get the input from another human. So it's not just AI cranking out something, it's another human and me working on something and trying to use this tool to generate what we need. And then seeing not only what it gives us and then it changing our perspective, but I need input. I need input from the editor. Like sometimes I'm looking at a shot, I'm like, what do you think? You know what I mean? Like if not, then you're working in a too closed of a space, and you need that human interaction, even if it's you're an expert in every single application. It doesn't work because you just need input. I mean, reading a script or writing a script and sending it out to 10 people. When 3 people agree that something's not right, they're probably right. You know what I mean? Like you're like, yep, 3 people said the same note. Okay. So you need that kind of thing. So that workflow, figuring that out and how to work together, and I had to learn the other people's languages, but then the AI and the tool language to get what we needed. I say it generated, maybe like 30% of interesting shots that I liked up front, and then 70 was like trying to wrestle everything where we needed to go, which is just like a film set. You're out and it's like Thursday, we're gonna shoot this. Okay. Oh, it's raining and the train exploded and we're not gonna film this today. So now we're going in studio and we lost 2 locations and the lead has COVID. You gotta shift, and that's what it really was helpful, but it also made me, uh, consider antithesis shots than the ones I had thought about. So let's say I'll go, "Okay, this character is walking here." I said, "What about, like, them walking, like, with this macro view?" Someone took the word micro and put it in there instead of macro, and then it was this really close shot of boots, and I was like, "That's better. Leave it, leave it. That's better. Now I just need some sound." You know what I mean? Like, and it was that kind of like fun, happy accidents. I think there's a lot of that. You still have to have like your true north, but you can be a river that simulates.
My favorite moments across the board on all the shorts are the reimagining or the new adoption of process. And what I mean by that is we'll sit there with a shot and we're like, oh, I don't really like this shot. The coloring's off on it. Okay, let's get it to the colors. Let's get it to the comp artist. Let's get it. And like, we're killing days on this. Like, we're burning. And I finally go, and then finally usually I'm the voice of reason and going, guys, what are we doing here? Let's just reshoot it. Go back to story art. Just run a new image. Oh, right. Why are we trying to fix an image with 7 different solutions to get to the one thing we want when we can just run a new image and get it in like this? And then we do that and everyone's like, oh yeah, that works. That's great. That's what we wanted. And you realize how traditional Hollywood has basically formed this process in our brain where you're thinking, oh, well, this is what shot. What am I going to do with it? I got to do into sound. I'm going to have to cut away. I'm going to have to go into VFX or comp artist and comp something out. I'm going to just rerun AI, just rerun the AI art and get a new shot. Oh, right.
I mean, it's a disaster film, by many accounts. What this is, and I just recently took my daughter for the first time to Universal Studios, kind of reliving my own kind of childhood too, which it's gotten a lot scarier, that studio tour, by the way, for 8-year olds. The Fast and the Furious part's really rough, but it's interesting because in some ways that whole ride is there to like wow you with like the Dream Factory's ability to make a flood, to make it rain, to make sharks jump out of the water with explosions, and to see King Kong's universe and all these things that again are almost at the heart of where there's a lot of friction in this town around where does this leave the legacy industry. But if I'm remembering some of the comments Ashton Kutcher had after he interacted with Sora, one of them was about stuntmen. It's almost like, I don't know if he said this, but what I took away was like, why would you pay someone to risk their life for a movie again when you can, like you're saying, Chris, just kind of run it again, and I think it starts to change, our maybe our relationship with these danger moments, or maybe it just makes it responsible and we don't have to risk so much lives or maybe spend so much money. But it's interesting that it's taking on this thing that used to be part of such a large scope of resources and effort, that now we could just go straight to storytelling and sort of make these incredible things possible on the screen. I mean, this was part of a slate for you, Chris. What did you set out to achieve with, I mean, somebody gave you a challenge, like go make 5 films or however many. Where does this sit in terms of those goals? Where does this sit in terms of the next steps for TCL?
Yeah, I think we did a great job of bringing in really different talent and really different genres and ideas so that we were testing out and experimenting with different areas of AI, so it was like, what does a docufiction look like? What does animation look like? What does sci-fi look like? What does a comedy look like? What does live action look like when we overlay, AI onto it? So we had a variety of different experiences that really put a different test and also different styles of AI animation. So we're looking at, are you going photo real live action like we're trying to do on the slug? Or are you going something that's more Alita stylized like we did in Sunday? Like everyone had a different approach of what they wanted to do sort of with the vision of the storytelling. So it's a calling card for us. I mean, we are, of course, making and commissioning things for TCLtv Plus and building out our potential original slate for us. And as a differentiator in Fast and AVOD, I have spent my whole career uh, actually moving through the different platforms just sort of organically. I started out on local TV as a program director in Philadelphia, and where syndicated content and original content was the difference maker there, that I was able to build up that. Then I jumped to NBCU. I worked at Sci-Fi literally at the entry level stage, and we had no original content. We started building original content. Then I started an original movie division there, made over 350 films, then started original co-productions, started making that. That led to my job at Netflix, where I came in to do genre content. Um, Again, in the streaming platform, Netflix was already well established, but you saw the need for streaming platforms to not be just, library content. I think the same thing will happen with Fast and AVOD, which is like at some point we all have the same 400 channels and the same AVOD and the same. How do you differentiate, as a replacement for cable and really building your brand? What makes it different? Like why would I watch, one service over the other when they all have the same stuff? So that's one level. And then I think the other area in terms of our expertise and diversification is building our props as an actual work for hire studio. And that's happening. We're being hired. We are taking work on. We've got projects now for an independent film. Someone's brought us, and we've already commissioned, original story design, and we're off and running, and we're going to make a film for an indie producer who brought us funding and brought us, a project, and we broke down a script, and we're now starting to make, the storyboards. And so,
And what's the goal for that? That's trying to get into festivals or going straight to.
no, I mean, the goal is that we're work for hire for studio. Yeah, it's an independent film that, basically we're going to make. I mean, we've done a little bit of ad work. We've had people that have brought us films, and they're like, look, Chris, I don't have a huge budget, and I've got VFX shots in a live action film. We don't need to make the whole film. But we're like, could you solve this with AI? Could you do these, creature shots in this movie for us, this indie film that I did, and put a bid on it and take on that work, and let's work together and figure it out. You'll give me probably a better quality, higher quality at lower cost. So I think there are opportunities for us as we are becoming a studio that's playing in multiple areas as a work for hire production service company, essentially, that can take on projects that aren't ours, that we may or may not own, that we may or may not have even a piece of, or even ever, debut on TCLtv Plus. That's just for somebody else's platform. And then we have our own stuff, and we're building our own service up. And then we're in, a variety of different, other areas that open up for us, whether it's just shots or things here or there that we can be collaborative on. So I think we're building up a larger sort of entity of who we are and what our expertise is. And it's strange to say that we have a ton of experience, because who has a ton of experience in AI? But we've been doing this for about a year now, a little over a year, and I feel like we are one of the leaders out there in this space, not only creating content, but with a team of people that are probably now could consider themselves experts in the field, just based on the amount of hours they've logged working on professional level content within AI. So we continue to get better every day. We have engineers and scientists and a studio team that's all over the world. And so we've got both, sort of the research, our own sort of proprietary TCL AI too, that connects things together in the background. We're agnostic to the tools in the sense we're not in the engine game trying to compete with Sora or Runway or anyone else. And we hope to align, ourselves as one of the sort of leaders as a studio in AI.
Super interesting. And again, I think to see major institutions jump in and find their way into either the lab, of like jumping into something that's, call it unproven, speculative, emergent, all kinds of amazing adjectives. But I guess I'm curious for you. I mean, look, you've like you said, have been in other versions of legacy media, sort of are familiar with. I'm guessing you have a lot of friends in these different places. I think a lot of us who've been kind of curious early, whether by commission because you found a role within an organization or by passion, hobby, interest, like a lot of people that are running towards this as creators. I think it's been and it continues to be a time to still understand that some people don't get it or aren't interested in this, don't sort of like the trends of how this affects perhaps things that they like the way they were. I guess I'm curious, what has it been like for you this year to be in the position you've been in, to sort of have that belief system and in some ways have to interact with that energy, which I respect. I think a lot of this stuff should deserves interrogation and curiosity on both sides. But here you are at this milestone, and I'm guessing a lot of steam moving forward. This idea of doing work for hire work as a studio, that's super interesting. Like it's a two-way street here. What has this year been like for you and reaching this milestone? What is it? How have you had to navigate that?
Yeah, I would say it's incredibly exciting I've always been very much a builder everywhere I've gone. I've been very entrepreneurial. And so the ability to do that here is probably my favorite thing. I've always been half business, half creative my whole career. So, and I think I thrive in environments that give me the ability to do that. Um, it is controversial. It is divisive. And I think in some ways that's the best thing about it because you can have a lot of criticism and skeptics and it's not there yet. It's not that good. It's got, errors here or there. It's, you know, ultimately comes down to storytelling, and it does come down to people. And I've tried to go out of my way to really hammer that home everywhere I speak, whether it's on a podcast or in an interview or on stage at our event, is that we are using people. These are stories uh, made by people for people using AI that powers the visuals. So, writers are writing, actors are acting, be it performance, motion capture, or voice. Producers are producing, composers are writing music. I'm not looking to sub in an AI's opinion on humanity and have them tell the stories and create the stories, right? So this is, it's going to take talent to make the best content. When the iPhone came out, everyone's like, hey, everybody's a filmmaker now. You've got professional level camera. Anybody can be a filmmaker. True, anybody can, but how many professional level films have we seen shot on an iPhone? Most of them are ads for Apple, and rightfully so. But but they but in the actual community, I mean, other than pickups here or there that someone might do on an indie film, it's just not the answer, right? So it's the people behind it. So I think for me, I am still continue to stress that and continue to grow that. And I think I posit the question to the community, as critical as you might be, you should be able to see whether or not there's a future in this. For me, it's unequivocally that there is going to be AI content in which it is going to look amazing, not have the errors. We might be 18 months away. It might be 2.5 years away, but it's happening. So what then? Like you can poke the holes in the present conversation because the quality maybe hasn't evolved to a place of pure acceptance. But I don't know if a younger generation necessarily is going to care. Hollywood has done a very poor job of not building stars and people, and instead has and building IP, and has probably in some ways maybe created some of their own challenges in that respect because if you don't how many uh, big actors can open a film. There's a handful, right? It's become like it's the IP that opens the film, and the actors have been, have lost a lot of the power. I think this gives new opportunity to new voices, new talent, potentially new stars. I mean, I think there's ways for people to make content and break out that maybe can't get through in traditional Hollywood.
Can you, one thing that Shelby has said to me before when we're kind of observing all this stuff is just how like the new virtues of production, given these technologies, like a big one is being nimble. Just that like in your own production model, like be ready for that next update coming from some other tool
Or new tool entirely.
or a new tool entirely new. And I think it creates a bit of a mindset as a creator of being ready to zig and zag. with knowing that that's what, the floor underneath you, what it looks like these days, that things change so quickly. What were some things that surprised you? What are things that maybe as part of the original plan, whether on an individual film or even overall, what were there moments of discovery for you that, whether it was the best laid plans that got even better or that changed as they always do? What was that like for you in the mission of this slate?
Well, I would say the one just on a general principle, the thing we've learned over and over again is how quickly AI is evolving. That we joke when you're just like we see something that we are making, or made, whether a month or two ago, and we're like, oh, that just looks like so November 2024, right? Because it's just like what we can do in December versus November can be wildly improved. So that sort of almost extinction date on the technology that happens every couple of weeks, where it gets get better and better and better, taught us really quickly early on that we should be making shorts because we've got to get them out. We started out on a longer form project, and we made like 45 minutes of an AI story, and realized that every time we were like in editing mode and polishing mode, new technology came out and it looked like a dinosaur. And we started all over again. And then we started all over again. And after that happened 3 times, we're like, shut it down. We can't make 40 minutes, unless you're going to throw, 100 people on it and get it out this super fast. If you're going to do something that you've got to release it quickly and move on. I think until there's more stability and consistency in that increasing quality, that and I think there are areas like animation that you can start doing that now. But in terms of some of the other areas, it just improves so quickly that you've got to kind of like make it and then move on to the next project.
That's really interesting, and it's a, we're all noticing what a gold rush it is for shorts, but it's an interesting observation that is that a form built around a function that, like you say, that it's almost like the effort makes more sense in a short. It reminds me of what the 90s were to music videos, that, there was a golden age of some of the, some of my favorite directors who just were given this incredible opportunity to just go nuts on a budget with a band or a musician. And whether it was Spike Jonze or Michael Bay or David Fincher, so many people came out of those short experiments to define their voices.
And if you remember, they were being poo-pooed as well. Like, oh, they're not real directors, they're just music video directors. It was the same kind of a thing. Oh, it's just AI. No, it's another thing, and it's like going to be totally useful. 100%.
I love that as a way to get inspired by I think we show up to these screenings and we see so many new faces, so many people that, just threw themselves into trying something totally radical. And a lot of people are making their names. Obviously, Dave Clark was up on stage with you at the event, and he's having an amazing moment. What are the things that now, with sort of the 2020 vision that comes with being as close to this as you've become, what do you look ahead to? Whether it's the good old fashioned predictions, or what are things that you're really imagining? 2025 is going to be wild. I think is the shortest version I have of what this year coming is going to be. In so many ways, I feel like it's going to be nuts with AI. What are you predicting, imagining, expecting, both of you?
I think, well, we're going to get into long form, so that is definitely on our agenda. That's next upcoming, and we're already doing it in some ways as work for hire. But there'll be probably our own projects that we will eventually start work on. I think we will see some revolutionary breakthroughs in the quality and capture and realism. I think whether it is in 2025 or not, I do believe there will be a day, a week, I will say, in which AI will break out. And what I mean by that is we're living in it and we see it every day. So it's not a surprise to us. But I believe there will be a definitive turning point in AI in which you will see, like in 1 week, a whole bunch of Variety and Deadline articles coming out about all the studios now fully moving because some piece of content came out that proved to them that this is the future now, and they're going to get off sort of the couch of with their popcorn that they're watching carefully and nervous about, and the relationships they have with talent and overalls and all of that and they will be compelled beyond a reasonable doubt that they have to get in, and otherwise it's too late. And I think you will see a reaction to that in the industry, which will be even more polarizing than it is now, because it will be this is happening and everyone's moving in on it, and it'll seem like it happened in a week when it's really been happening for quite a long time.
And I think that'll happen because of, the, I mean, basically our generation and younger, video game exposure, digital exposure, a lot of people don't need Lawrence of Arabia, even that's one of my favorite films. You just don't need to see some of these things in the project. And it goes down to what Chris said. It's about the story. It's about the humanity of the story. And once someone does that in a feature film form, everyone's going to jump on board. Everyone's going to say, okay, well, you know, it's Blair Witch. It's moving from black and white to Gone with the Wind. Like it's like to the next stage. It's moving in that way, and then they'll just go, okay, we have to do it.
I'm always sort of fascinated by, some of the sort of key frontiers that I think will be broke through, like will be like performance from an actor, let's say. So let's like right now, and Kirk can speak to this personally. It's like because he's been on sets and he's worked as an actor for so long. When you if you put makeup on to become an old person, and you're aged, you can win an Academy Award for such riveting performance and transformative, and by doing that makeup and some visual effects and de-aging you, all that stuff. But there's a future in which AI does that. And there's a future in which AI also alters your performance. In which, so like, maybe the crying scene wasn't great there, but AI is able to make that crying scene just that much better. Now, some actors won't approve that. And they'll be like, that's not my performance. It's not my choice. There will be younger actors who won't care. And I look forward to the day when like some actor will be up on stage with an Oscar and be like, I just won an Oscar. And there'll be a lot of criticism around, was that really his performance though? Because AI helped that performance, and that person with the Oscar won't care, but clearly a lot of other people who aren't holding it will.
Yeah, and that argument's in right now, like the difference between film and TV versus theater acting. Like that's a huge thing that actors talk about. They're like, listen, the acting is not a television and film medium. It is a stage medium because you don't get to do an entire performance. You do something, you stop. Hey, can you put oh yeah, this wasn't over here. Move it over here. Hey, we got to change the angle of the camera, and then you're just like, it's not an actor's medium, and it never has been. And so like when you think of it from that perspective, people are going to say the same thing Chris is saying. Oh no, it wasn't really that performance, but they already do that to like disabilities. Marley Matlin wins an Oscar for Children of Left Behind, and people if you look at the articles that came out during that period, they said, "Wow, I mean, she's deaf, like she's just being her," and she's like, "What are you talking about? That was acting." You know what I mean? Like I'm not that character. And so you see that like duality of thought, and it's always fear based or poo pooing something new or fresh that's gonna change the way that they're used to doing it.
Yeah, I'd love, Kurt, for you to talk about, because you and I have had this conversation many times, and I'm really fascinated by this idea, which is, the stereotype of disabled people only being cast as disabled in disabled roles, and the freedom that maybe AI changes that.
Yeah, I think it could be really interesting because there's like several elements. Like, only 2% of television characters have a disability, and 95% of them are played by able-bodied actors. 30% plus of Oscar-winning performances were able-bodied people playing disabled characters. And so you go, okay, I get that's acting. But then when a disabled performer isn't even allowed to audition for an able-bodied role, like you know what I mean? Like you can't even do that. And then almost unequivocally, it's always the excuse of, well, I mean, we had to hire an able-bodied actor because he had to have 3 minutes of able-bodiedness and then 98 minutes of disabled. And so we green screened the arm missing. We had the CT. We downgraded the legs. It's never the other way around. It's never a performer with a disability being created into an able-bodied character for a little short period of time and then being disabled in the storyline. And AI can do that. So I think it will change the perspective of disability and disabled filmmakers as well. And that will be fascinating because they're hyper excluded. I mean, by far, by a factor of 500 more excluded than any other group. And it's a really interesting dynamic that I think AI could play into it. And then there's that. So imagine going disabled to able to disabled, and it's the same performer, and they were already disabled. And then now you get an authentic perspective on it. And as a filmmaker, let's say you have a writer, but the director's not disabled. And they're like, "Oh, play it this way." And you're gonna have now the actor being able to say, "Hey, no, let's try it this way because that's more authentic." So the story's more true, and that's what will come across. But having that conjoined with AI, I think could be like a revolutionary door open for not only filmmaking but the community. And 20% of the population, that's 1 billion people on the planet. 1 billion. And almost no content is made for them. It's just like I can go on and on and on.
I love your. I mean, I love how wrong I was about what your film was or is, and I appreciate you guys giving me the space to own it. But I also love that it becomes a doorway to talking about accessibility and communities that are also not on the user's manual of what is this technology designed for. To think that this is opening possibilities, that it's a really, really interesting observation, obviously coming from someone that it matters a lot to, about what this does for your community. I love that. Um, Thank you both. I mean, this is so interesting, and I am genuinely excited about TCL, the studio. Like, yeah, I want to see the movies you guys are making. How do you take all this know-how it back into the rest of the market? But I love knowing that anybody with a TCL already has a setting and a mainstream experience to start seeing films like Kurtz. There's also this amazing Slug film. I mean, do you want to just give us a quick hits of like what the other 5 films? Like, we'll probably scan them across the YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, Slug from Chen Tang is a wonderful sort of transformation story. We've got Sunday from Paul Johansson, that's a sci-fi epic. We have The Audition from George Wang, which is a true comedy with live action immersed and overlaid with AI. Really unique showcase of the versatility of AI. We've got Kalita Smith, who did Project Nexus, which is a Black animation. So tremendous amount of diversification in the stuff that we did. And I'm excited to have everyone check it all out.
Very cool. I'm excited to just turn on my TCL TV and watch this stuff.
They all launch tomorrow, 12/12. So there you go.
But super regret not being there for the big screen. I mean, what an excitement that must have been for you, Kurt, to see it on that classic experience in Hollywood.
What was great was listening to the audience and then feeling the energy. You can watch something and go, cool, but like getting to sit there and slowly turn around and peeking at the far people and like looking over here and like getting their reaction. And then, yeah, people can come up to you and go, nice film. There's a difference between that and, hey, I was not expecting that. Like they're taking the piss out of themselves a little bit and saying, I didn't even think that I would enjoy it. And I really did. You saw people that were convinced in that screening.
It's a great film, and I think while it's on the asterisk side of documentaries and unscripted, I know a lot of people on the unscripted side are looking at what that points to, that genre of survival, if people in their first person narratives. It helped create a conversation that I know sort of echoed its way back to me and my peers. Look, thank you both for coming in today. We're approaching the holidays. It's tough to get a minute with everybody, but this was awesome. Thanks everybody for listening today. Look, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or whatever audio platform you use to listen to podcasts. And if you're interested in AI filmmaking, please do check out our website. We'd love to have you in our community. We got all kinds of courses with animation, documentaries, advertising, and of course the core filmmaking course. But thanks everybody, and we will see you next time.
Take care.